In honor of Halloween, this week you get the disembodied voice. Now, we're going to be coming up on writing next. At the same time, I wanted to talk about your presentations. In general, the thing you see is a pattern. And each of these different formats, whether it's verbal, presentation, or writing, just has a different set of rules. This is the way I look at everything. It's a game. But if you understand the rules of the game and how it's played, then you can win the game. And so that needs to kind of be like a mentality you have to develop. But when you write something, remember that every paragraph has its own story. And the same thing applies to slides. Every slide by itself is telling a story. And the title of your slide should be a headline, because that tells everybody what the story is going to be about. Now, this paper that you looked at, what were the flaws in it? Well, fundamentally, it wasn't a bad story. What I'm always looking for is what you're doing when you make anything you do for me. I ask for three things. First of all, your answer is you're making a case. You're making an argument of why this is true. And one thing that I don't do in my classes typically is use a rubric, because I just want to see what you can do. I don't want you to look at something and start checking off boxes just because you want to get a good score. And I rather you have come up with insights. And this is also the reason why there's no one right answer. This is social science. In real business, everybody knows what the answer is with hindsight, but at the time, nobody knew what the answer was, so you make the best guess based on the data that you have. And so you have to think about your answers as I'm making a case. So if I'm making a case, what point do I want to make, and how do I support it? And if you did numerical problems, this is why 60% of the grade on a numerical problem that I do is just set it up. 30% is calculations. Now you're thinking, Dr. Cho, if I don't set it up right, then how can I do the calculation? Well, this is why calculation is graded separately based on your setup. Would this calculation make sense? And then 10% for the answer, because somebody who comes up with the right answer, these are definitive problems, so somebody who comes up with the answer, they should get a little bit more credit. Anyway, let's walk through this. And so, first of all, it was my first semester at Arizona State University. What a dull opening. He doesn't draw you in. The story, his nervousness about it. Here's the problem. He squeezed too much in here. Meaning he started talking about his loss of a child and everything. And then he brings it up again, but he doesn't expound on it. The second paragraph is the one. The first few weeks of classes were chaos and I was in a predicament. Lead line, this is a story. Good lead line, chaos, predicament, and then he explains what it actually is. This was a good paragraph. This was a bad paragraph, because when I started the semester, I was trying to learn how to navigate the Canvas system. He jumps from the Canvas system all the way to loss of a child. It's like in injuries, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. You totally lost me. And so you see the difference on how things hang together. And subsequently, if these don't flow in a story, remember, these are your points and subpoints, then this doesn't work. And that's why this didn't work for me. Anyway, assignment date is pretty much kind of a repeat of the other one. I'm giving you another chance to clean it up. And why am I repeating this? Because it's important. Because it's important that when you go before somebody, that you have a good story. Here's the problem with some of you, and actually myself. We don't like to talk about ourselves. We don't like it when people say, oh, tell me about yourself. And it's like, oh. So what do you need? How do you get past this? You turn to a story. I was recently talking to these people in entrepreneurship who have connections to the country of India. And they said, out of the blue, so tell us about yourself, Steve. And I didn't want to use my 2-minute elevator pitch, although I could have. So what did I do to start off with? I was born of poor but noble parents. That buys me a few seconds. It gets them to laugh a little bit. And then I just said to them, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And then I started going into my basic story, but I didn't use the traditional one because I remember what the points are. And the points are, first, what's my background, my industrial experience, and what I'm doing here right now. Those are the points you have to think about in your story. Remember, prime assignments are 3, 7, and 10. 10 is a paper. What is the deadline for this? There is no deadline as long as I get it before the end of the semester. The big thing, though, is if you turn it in too late, then you won't know if you passed or not. And you can conceivably get a 0. The thing is, everybody got a 0 on the first try. Nobody does it perfectly. Your presentations. Did anybody look at how to make a presentation slides? Because you went ahead and just did it the way you're used to doing it. You didn't use the techniques that the lecture talked about. One is, I said, don't use fonts. Like, for example, this is a font. This is what Times New Roman. And it has serifs in it. And the problem is that if you're in a big room, or if you don't have a good projector, or if you're watching from the back of the room, it becomes really hard to read. And not only that, is that it takes energy to read, and it's just tiring. You can't skim it easily to understand what it is. So watch your fonts. Some of you use bullet points. Again, a big no-no. Here's the thing. You've got all these lectures you can download. If you want to take some of those formats, just copy it. Primary words. I had a student on campus who wanted to write a presentation about why the hydrogen car is better than EVs. And he wrote environmental analysis of EVs for the title of his slide. And I told him, and then he had all these other words and facts and stuff like that. And so it just became lost. I said, this slide is a story. Why don't you start out with EVs are not that clean? Because that was the point he was trying to make, that it has pollution. And then he had titles, but then he had all these words on it. And I said, why not just make it simple? Because you're telling a story. Just have the word waste. There's a lot of waste that comes out of the lithium-ion battery, the recycling. And guess what? It's not that easy to recycle it. And so you don't need a lot of words. Just put down what the primary words and points are. And the strong point of this presentation is you telling the story. And that's what all of this is still all about. Anyway, everybody, have a good week and have a happy Halloween. Every Halloween I dress up, but since it's a Friday this year and I don't have class on Friday, nobody's going to see me. But I walk into class and I chew everybody out like, why didn't everybody get dressed up? It's Halloween. Come on, where's your spirit? And then they said, well, you didn't dress up, Dr. Choi. I said, yes, I did. Who am I? And then the students start staring at me. And then somebody inevitably will say, Steve Jobs. Yes, I wear a black mock turtleneck, jeans, and tennis shoes. So that's my Halloween outfit. Actually, I felt really bad because I told the students, you should all get into the Halloween spirit. I have an evening class that goes from 6 to 8:45. And one student came in wearing one of those like neoprene carrot costumes. Well, the thing is, the AC wasn't working well that day. It was an Indian summer day. And the poor guy just sat in class for 2 hours and 40 minutes and just sweated. I felt so bad about that because he wouldn't have done it if I hadn't pushed it. Anyway, everyone have a good one.